Today, we're talking about this very exciting topic about misbehaviors because we all parents witness our children misbehaving at least sometimes once a day, multiple times a day. And if we have multiple children, then we witness that even more. So learning about why do children misbehave? What do they need? And also why it's so upsetting to us when our children are misbehaving. So I'll get started right away. And again, if you're joining me right now, please let me know where you're from. And also if you can hear me. I can see that I am live. So why do kids misbehave? They misbehave because children and all of us were born dysregulated. We did not know when we come into this world, the first few years of life, how things work. We don't know how to manage our own emotions. And truthfully, to this day, a lot of adults don't know how to regulate their own emotions. It happens to me, and it may happen to you at times as well. Also, we are the only species where our children stay with us until they're about 16 to 18 years old. So that means that our own development requires that we have parents to guide us all along. So that's the fact. The human brain is not fully developed until their mid-20s. So knowing that fact and that we're born dysregulated, and as children, when we're learning, it's very messy. So I'm going to ask you a question. When was the last time you learned a new skill or you learned a new task that you were doing? How messy was it at the beginning? How frustrating was it at the beginning? So remember that our children are also learning as they come into this world. They're learning about a lot of things, and it gets messy. Another reason why children misbehave is that attachment needs are not being met. They are threatened by the environment they are in. And I'm going to expand on this a little bit more in a little bit. They don't know how to communicate their feelings. So that's part of their learning. That's a part of the messiness that happens. They don't have language. They don't have words when they're very young, or even when they get to their teenage years. Sometimes they still don't know how to express themselves. So they have difficulty expressing what they need. And so when children feel there is something that is not feeling quite right, it's a visceral sensation. They feel it on the inside. And if they don't have the way to communicate it, then they choose a behavior that usually will get immediate attention. So maybe teasing their siblings or hurting their siblings is what gets moms and dad attention in those moments. While their little brains say, I need attention, so I'm going to do the thing that usually will get, boom, immediate attention. And so they then act it out. When they don't know how to communicate, the words act out literally means that they're using their body to act out what they don't know how to say to us. So pretend that you flew to another country, completely different language. You don't know the language. And suddenly you need to use the bathroom and you don't know the words to express yourself. You see a stranger that looks like they are from this place. What would you do to ask? If you don't have language, you act it out. And that's exactly what our children are doing when they're misbehaving. They are acting it out. And know that a child will go to extreme measures to get their needs met. Because, again, the brain says, if those needs are not being met, you won't survive. So it is instinctual that the child will do whatever they can in order to get their needs met. But if they don't know how to communicate that, then they will act it out, and they choose to act it out in a way that they know will get immediate attention from us. So hopefully that is making sense to you. Let me know. I know some of you are listening right now live with me. So put in your comments in the thread. It's always more enjoyable to have some interaction, and also for other members of this group to know that I'm live and they can watch this either now or later. So thank you for doing that. And children, if you can get something today, and that, because that made a big difference for me, and that made a big difference for the clients that I see, is to know that our children are not waking up in the morning saying, I want to make mom's and dad's life difficult. I want to cause trouble for them. So therefore, I'm going to misbehave. They don't get up and say that's what they're wanting to do. That's not their intention. So when there's misbehaviors, and you've all learned this probably already, if you're a conscious parent or you're wanting to parent more gently, more calmly, more peacefully, you know that now that behaviors are just symptoms. The child misbehaved because there's an underlying need underneath. And that's what I'm going to touch upon when we get to what is it that they need. So if you can put those two together, that behaviors are just symptoms, and therefore just adjusting the behavior is not enough. Because if you do that, then you have to keep adjusting the behavior. You have to keep relying on your child to adjust the behavior. Whereas if we can get to the root cause of it, then the behaviors will decrease over time. So our children also need guidance, and they're going to need good role models. Remember, the child under 7 years old is watching, hearing, and whatever we're mirroring to them in the environment is what they are absorbing and learning. So they need our guidance, and they need us to mirror to them how to regulate their emotions, how to ask for things. They learn that from watching us. So then this will lead us to what is it that they need in those moments when they're misbehaving. And let's step back a little bit as well, is that it's not only what they need in this moment, is what have they been needing up to the point when they get desperate and they start to misbehave. Because what hasn't happened is what's causing the aggressiveness, it's causing the tantrums, and so on and so forth. So first thing, they need help with their unmet needs. And that's what it is. And if you've listened to my other trainings, you know what those needs are, those attachment needs. The needs to be seen, to be heard, to be accepted, to be understood, to feel like they belong, and therefore they feel safe. Those are the needs that every child has, and every human also have those needs. So when they are not feeling seen, they're not feeling heard, they're not feeling accepted for who they are, they're not feeling understood for whatever reason, they feel unsafe. And when they feel unsafe, again, it's a visceral sensation in their little bodies that starts to bother them. They can feel it, right? And when they feel it, they need to do something about the feelings. But if they can't communicate and they can't pinpoint, which is often the case, and that's what makes parenting so difficult, because we as parents need to figure out what does my child need right now? Or what is it that I haven't done for my child that they are needing, right? And so because they can't say it, therefore they engage into a behavior that will grab our attention, even if it's negative attention that they're getting in those moments. I'm going to go a step further though, because I'm going to share with you that for myself and for my clients for the past years working with parents specifically, what I've seen is that the exact thing that they're doing, say, for example, a child is not listening to us. Could it be it's because we are not listening to them in the first place? When our child is not acknowledging our own presence, they're ignoring us. Could it be that they feel ignored themselves by us or by other adults? And so that's something I want you to ponder upon, that may take some time to wrap your head around it. I see some comments coming in. So welcome, Lucia. Nice to have you here. Welcome, Amanda. Yes, Amanda say, yes, it helps me tremendously to not take it personal. Welcome, Senge. So happy to have all of you here. So perhaps you being able to ponder upon what I just said for a moment and put your comments in the thread. Could it be that what they are doing as behavior is a reflection of what is it that they are also not getting from us, parents, teachers, caregivers, and so on? So that's something we want to see. Are we validating our children? Are we listening to them, right? If they are not listening to us or they're not acknowledging us in those moments when we're perceiving as them misbehaving. Also, children next has a need to make sense of what is happening in their environment. A lot of things can be happening in their environment, right? We all know as parents, there are times where everything is working out for all of us, and there are times where there are situations that are challenging. For instance, for the past few years, there's been a pandemic. So nobody had control over that, but that was the case for everyone in the world. There could be something going on, like a separation, a divorce in the family, ongoing arguments, siblings needing help, or even us as parents being stressed out because of certain things that's happening for us. So when all of this is happening, there could be an illness, for example. Our children usually can't make sense of that. They don't understand the big picture. But remember, they can feel everything. So if they see arguments happening with mom and dad, they can feel the energy of that. And that is also very threatening in those moments where the two people that are the most important in my lives are in conflicts all the time. And what I'm feeling in my little bodies is that a sense of feeling very unsafe. This uncertainty of what's going to happen. Because I can tell you for myself, growing up, when my parents were fighting and they were threatening of separation, all of that, it was really scary for me. And the same thing, I had my client Sophia this week who told me the same thing at 4 years old, when her parents decided to separate. It was really, really scary for her. And she didn't have a say. She wasn't able to express. And that was, kept her very paralyzed and helpless in those moments. So making sure that we are helping our children to make sense of what's going on, where there is some stress happening in the environment. because otherwise they'll feel it and then they don't know what to say, what to do, and they may, again, then misbehave in those circumstances. The other need, the third need, is the need for a parent to mirror to them who they are. So all our babies come into the world, including us when we came into this world, we knew that we were enough, that we were worthy, that we're lovable, that we belong. That was the truth. Because look at a baby doesn't say, hey, don't look at me. Instead, the baby say, hey, look at me, pick me up. I want your attention because I know I deserve attention. And so we also need to continue to mirror that to our children ongoing, especially when they're learning to function in society, when they're learning the rules about society, what to do, what not to do, how to act, how to respond, and the difficulties that come with that. They need our reassurance, and they need us to mirror to them what they're capable of doing. And so the encouragement, the comfort is important for us to comfort them, to give them the reassurance they need in those moments. So as a society, though, we tend to focus on what they can do better, which is not a bad thing, right? We all, as parents, want our children to work and do something better and better and better, and they get really good at it, right? So when they learn how to tie their laces, with time, they can be more efficient, and then it gets quicker and less frustrating. And that's what we want for them, right? And that goes with everything. But when we just focus on what they can do better all the time, right? I've done it. I know that I'm guilty of that, and say, hey, you can maybe do this. And sometimes we're busy and that's what's coming out of our mouth. But when we just focus on that, then it also makes them feel, is that because I'm not capable? That's why she keeps saying that to me, that it's always like something that I can always do better, because then it can come as a criticism or as a judgment, right? Because again, it's how our children are perceiving as well, how they are absorbing the information. So I'm not saying that we can't help our children get better at a skill, but making sure that we're reflecting to them and say, hey, I know you're smart. I know you're completely capable, and I know that you can get better at this. Do you think you can get better at this? And let the child, say yes or no to you. And that makes them see, oh yeah, mom sees that I can do this, that I'm smart enough to learn this, even if it's a little bit challenging, but I can do this, right? And I can focus on getting better. And we can also ask the child to come up with, what is it that you can do better next time? Especially as they are growing up and getting a little bit older, what would make this easier for you? Right? Asking them the questions instead of us saying, hey, do this or that, and that will help you. Because when we say do this or that, we all know how that feels for us when somebody is just saying that all the time to us. Then we don't feel seen. We actually feel like, oh, maybe that's all they see about us, where we're making the mistakes or where we're not doing enough. Don't know if that is making sense to you. Let me know in the threads as well. I'm going to continue here and I will answer your questions after. But yeah, so letting me know if that's making sense. And the next need is for us parents to do the repair work. So I've touched upon that in other trainings as well. We are all humans. And as parents, we are humans, and we're going to make the mistakes despite the fact if we know better, right? On the days that we're not feeling good ourselves, our own needs are not being met, we're not going to be able to respond calmly And it's going to happen. It happens to me. It happens to you. It happens to every parent. But when it happens, it's important to do the repair work. Why? Because children are in a way narcissistic, not in a bad way. They're narcissistic in a way that they will take on the responsibility and the blame for whatever is going on if we don't tell them that it's not their fault. And how do we do this a lot of times is when we are just addressing behaviors, right? When we are saying, oh, this is, you're acting out like this, this is not acceptable. And we keep pounding on that. And over time, they'll start to blame themselves because we are blaming them. We're blaming their behaviors constantly, right? Because we're just trying to address the behaviors, but again, underneath the behaviors are the needs that are not being met. But our children can't do anything. They will take on the blame and think they are the problem. I'm too lazy, right? If they're hearing this, that's why I can't do this. That's why I'm not getting this. That's why I'm not getting better, and so on. So whatever story is coming up is what they're hearing, and they are making this about them. So, and that's how shame and guilt also starts to happen when a child thinks that they are bad, that who they are is actually bad. So we don't want to encourage that. That's the exact same thing we don't want to pass on to our kids. So it's important for us as parents, when we make the mistake, when we got upset, and we know we were under stress, and the stress wasn't caused by our children, it was caused by work, about our circumstances in our lives, that we take the time and sit down with our children when everybody's calm and let them know that we slipped, right? And we can apologize, and then let them know that it's not their fault. And that's not because they're bad. And even if they were behaving in a certain way that triggered us, that doesn't mean that it was their fault, right? And that's what I'm going to touch upon in a little bit, is about why do we get so upset, right? Yes, they may have triggered us. That behavior is what we see, but why is this making us so upset? What is that all about? So those are the four major needs. I would say the needs, the attachment needs that are not being met, that will cause them to misbehave. The need for the parent to mirror to them who they are, their true essence, is important, because that's what's going to encourage them to get better, to do better as well. And also, it's a reflection of the truth that they are enough, lovable, worthy, accepted, and that they belong. And then it's about doing the repair work as well. And I think one I missed, it was like making sense of what's going on in their environment. If there are things going on in their environment that's affecting how we're showing up, maybe we're not spending as much time with them because we have to take care of a family member, of a sibling that's needing more attention, and that they know it's not because we don't want to spend time with them, and that the other person right now is not feeling good and we need to care for them. And so all of those are the needs that the child has. And when those needs are not being met, that's when we may see those misbehaviors happening. So why do we parents find it so challenging when they trigger us? Remember, the trigger in a gun is just this little thing. When the trigger is pushed, it's the explosive that comes out. That's our reaction. The explosives are our reaction and strong emotions. So the true reasons why our children's behaviors upset us is our perception of what's going on in those moments. Our perceptions is what's causing us to feel those strong emotions. And our perceptions, again, comes from our own belief. What we're making this mean in the moment when I see my child not listening, when I see my child starting to be aggressive, right? And so on. So let me pause for a moment and see Lucia is saying. So Lucia is saying it means that perhaps that's all they do how to do, ignore us if that's what they. Well, it's not all that we're doing, but it may be in certain situations, if they feel ignored, if our children feels ignored and their needs are not being met, they are going to also reflect that instinctually to us. So it's almost like, by us attuning to that, are we ignoring something right now? Because everything that our child is saying or doing is a symptom of something that they're wanting to communicate to us. And so if we can pause and see, okay, like my child is not listening, perhaps I'm not listening to what they're saying to me. Perhaps I'm not attuning to that part of them that's trying to get my attention. I don't know if that is answering your question, Lucia. So Lucia is also asking, what ages are we considering here? Well, it's all ages. Like that's the thing. Behaviors, misbehaviors, we see it happening very early on, all the way up into the teens. So whatever misbehaviors is happening, it's always a symptom of something deeper. And that something deeper is for us to clue in. What is it? So I'm going to carry on and I will answer the other questions in a little bit. So the true reason is our perception, and our perceptions come from the belief we're having of what are we making this mean when my child is misbehaving. Often what is happening in the background, again, it may not be intentional, but it's in the background is, I don't know how to help you right now when you're misbehaving, when you're being aggressive. I feel out of control too when you misbehave. I can control myself. Or we are making it mean I cannot protect you. And when I cannot protect you, I don't feel good. So then when I don't feel good, then there's some form of anxiety perhaps that comes up, and then boom, I want to deflect that and I get really angry. I'm scared of your failures, right? If you fail, how do I feel about that as a parent if you fail? Or we may see it like, okay, I can't handle you at 2. What is that going to be like later on? Can I handle this? And when we can't handle something, how do we feel? We feel pretty vulnerable as a parent, not being able to handle something. And when we feel pretty vulnerable as a parent, what do we believe about ourselves, about the situation right now? Or as a parent, we may feel overwhelmed, tired, and stressed over work. And we feel like we don't have more to give. And when you misbehave, that means it requires my attention. It requires me doing some problem solving and attuning into what is it that I need to do. And that's too much for me right now to handle again. Right? So all of this is going on in our perceptions of what's happening. Or another one is, you're wanting something, but I am not able to even meet my own needs. I haven't had time to, be able to just relax for 5 minutes. And there's that constant, need of yours that's happening when my own needs are not being met. So therefore I feel resentful, I get angry, and so on and so forth. Right? So all of this is happening in the background, our perception, right? Sometimes we expect our children to act more maturely. You should know better. That was a common one for me. Like, you should know better. Why did you do this? And when I have that perception, then it doesn't feel good, right? And then I get really angry because I expect my child to do better in those moments. And is that a realistic expectation that I have to ask myself? And how do I react when I have those expectations that are not being met? Right? So all of this comes into play. And another very common one is that we perceive we're not doing a good job as a parent. And that's very defeating. It reduces our confidence in parenting, and it shows in our own energy, right? So our perception plays a big role in why we get so upset towards those misbehaviors. So what I'm going to share with you is the truth. And I don't want to, beat around the bush here. I know you're all wanting to parent with more calm, being more conscious, and you probably want to parent your children differently from how you were parented. But I'm going to say that the challenges we face with our kids most of the time stem from past unresolved experiences we had as children. That's where the roadblocks comes. That's why we are unable to figure out for them, what they need and to be able to attend to those needs, and also what is happening for me when I witness that. So, for instance, I'll take the example of Amanda, who witnessed her son's angry outburst, and that's a common one. And then she figured out this angry outbursts were just reminding her of past experiences when she was a child, when her own mother was getting angry at her. And then it will bring up all those emotions from the past that most of the time were not able to be expressed, because as children, we all know, we've all been children ourselves, that there's so much we can do in the moment. Often we can't run or we can't fight back. So we had to stay immobilized, and our emotion were immobilized as well. But now, boom, today, when we're witnessing our own children behaving in a certain way, it takes us back to those unresolved situations that there was never an outlet to be expressed. So why do we get so upset? Because whatever your children are showing you in those moments reminds us as parents of our own emotional wounds that are still painful, right? I've also explained about if you get a cut on your hand, it's open, somebody comes by, brush against it, you're going to scream. It's going to be painful. But if the cut is healed, somebody come by and brush against it, you're not going to scream because you don't feel anything. So same thing with emotional wounds that are still raw and open for us, that we may have pushed down, but are still unresolved. That is what is really happening in those moments. We get stuck feeling alone, feeling unseen, feeling unheard, feeling misunderstood, right? The same needs that our kids need. Some of those needs that were not met for us in childhood, boom, when we see this from our children, we get taken back to the past where we got stuck there. And then we get really angry. because the pain is coming. And when we feel that pain, remember, emotional pain is visceral in the body. So the pain wants to move out. And in order for that pain to move out, what we've learned to do most of the time is get really angry. And when we get angry, we start to react with strong emotions. We yell, we punish, whatever is it that we do, we slam the door, we walk out. Whatever our habit that we've learned starts to happen. The good news, though, is that you and I were no longer children. We are now adults. We're no longer helpless, hopeless. We can do something about it. So all our beliefs, all our perceptions were based, again, from our past experiences. And so what we've learned, we can unlearn. And that's possible for everyone. Everyone. When I mean everyone, everyone is able to change beliefs and perceptions when we heal the wounds. Okay, so we need to address what's coming up for us in those moments. Because when we address that, then we can heal those wounds from the past. Then we as an adult today, we can do something about it. We're not stuck anymore. Right? So as adults, we are the only one responsible for how we feel on the inside and our reactions and our emotions that we feel. So when we can address that, then we can also attune to our children in those moments that they're showing us when they're misbehaving then we know there's that underlying needs. What are those needs? But until we know for ourselves how that feels and what are those needs, because there are just a certain amount of needs that our children have, right? Feel seen, feel heard, feel understood, feel accepted, feel like they belong, and that they're safe with us. And so when we can address our own wounds, we become more attuned to what they need in those moments, or even before the misbehaviors happen, we can start to tune in. Okay, I can see what's going on right now. That's an indication for me that he needs my attention right now. Or there's something that they can't wrap their head around that I need to make sure they understand, right? What's going on in the environment. If they're witnessing a lot of fights going on, if they're witnessing less time being spent with them, if they're witnessing us being very stressed out, well, it's our responsibility as a parent to go and explain that to them. Even if they're very young, you can explain it in very simple terms that they can understand. And then they're not going to make it about them, right? And then you'll see that when their needs are met, the behaviors will lessen. And that happens, as we're taking care of their needs. So it's not like we have to push them to change their behaviors, because realistically, a child doesn't know how to do that. They're acting from instinct most of the time. And so if we're forcing them to change their behaviors, maybe it works the first, the second, the third, and then boom, it goes back again. And that's what drives us crazy as a parent. And we're like, I don't know what to do. That's because we're not addressing the real root cause of the problem. And what doesn't help us to meet their needs is when we have needs ourselves that are not being met. We have some ongoing stuff that is coming up for us, and it's important that we take care of that. And that's why I decided to go on this journey to help parents, because for me, until I did that, I took time to reflect upon what's coming up for me in those moments of intense trigger and reactions. That's when I was able then to attune to them. That's how I was able then to manage my emotions and help them with theirs as well. So know that you can do something about it. And that's why I developed this program, which again, it doesn't take a long time. If you spend 3 months in the childhood years of your children is nothing. Would you agree? And if you can understand yourself better and heal your wounds, then you'll be able to attune to your child and help them by meeting their needs, and help them by understanding what's going on, and give them what they need so they feel safe within themselves. They feel safe to express and be who they are and make sense of this world as they're growing up. And that's what we want to do for our children, I believe, for all of us. And so we can also be free to parent in the way we want to show up. And by taking care of our own needs and addressing our own emotional wounds, we also become empowered, because we cannot only control what goes on within us. We think we can control our children, but we can't control them. It's not in our ability to control anybody, right? So then we want to guide our children. So in order to do this, it requires that we attune to ourselves first. We address what's going on with us, and then we can show up in a way where we can become, when we can be more understanding, when we can, use our intuition to attune to what they need more easier. And that comes with practice, but it starts with us. And that's my message to you today. I know it may not resonate with you right now. It may not make sense. You may question it, and that's completely fine. But if there is something that's resonating right now, and you are there, and you know that you're wanting to do this work because you see the benefit and you see how that's going to help you, then reach out to me, because again, you're not going to regret it. I guarantee you. All the parents that I've worked with for the past few years, they come out of this program, not only it helps them and their relationship with their children, but that's going to help you with relation with other people, with your partner, and also give your child the ability and the attunement that they need, and they become adults who can also do the same for their own children down the road. So if you're interested in this work, feel free to send me a DM. I'll be happy to just have a talk and see if that's, something that is good for you right now. And if you're ready for it, not everybody's ready for it. And so we have to see if that's going to work. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to look at the questions very quickly here. And I don't see other questions, but I'll stay here just a little bit longer. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat right now, and let me know everything that you've heard me say right now. Does that resonate with you, or does that not resonate? You don't have to agree with me. I'm just sharing my perspective and what has worked so far with my own clients, but you may disagree, and that's fine too. But let me know. Lots of sense. Lucia said, thank you. And Amanda said, yes, it helped me tremendously to not take things personally. Yes, I saw that. And yes, it's something, if we can wrap our head around it and switch how we see things, I guarantee you'll feel more in control, more empowered, and life is going to be easier with you and your children. And you're not going to freak out if you're starting to seeing misbehaviors. For me, at the point where when I see them misbehaving, then yeah, it may not necessarily feel good, but now I know what it's all about, that I need to go and address those needs that they have and help them with them. So thank you for listening. Thank you for attending this live. If you have questions afterwards, put them in the thread still. And I wish you a wonderful day, evening, or morning. And I'll talk to you very soon. I'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.